India is going to be a key player in sustainable aviation.
Our more focus is on making sustainable aviation fuel from renewable resources. Behind me is the pilot plant where we continuously do this process. We did a test flight between Dehradun and Delhi for SpiceJet using this fuel. And also for Indian Air Force, we work very closely with Indian Air Force and we continuously supply this fuel. We have supplied nearly about 8,000 liters of this fuel. And the goal is to have all the platforms of Indian Air Force aircraft to be certified to use this fuel continuously. So this is a step towards self-reliance. Also the Tata, even Indigo, Tata, SpiceJet, all those airlines, we have a MOU where we work together as a consortium to develop this technology to have the availability of this fuel inside our country. And with that goal, MRPL or Mangalore Refinery is setting up a plant using our technology along with Engineers India Limited.
Welcome back to another amazing episode of the Clampreneur Show. This episode is in collaboration with CSIR Indian Institute of Petroleum. In this collaboration, you would see a series of 8 episodes featuring eminent scientists from CSIR IIP who are actively working to build an Atmanirbhar Bharat while decarbonizing India's energy footprint. Quite recently, it was in news everywhere that how has a few airlines partnered with CSIR IIP on sustainable aviation fuel. We also heard in news that how a prominent company in the world said that India can be a world leader in creating sustainable aviation fuel. But how is this going to happen? How is India going to become the world leader? While on the news we see collaborations happening, while on the news we see that people expecting India and people keeping their hopes on India to be the world leader in sustainable aviation fuel, how is this going to happen? This is going to happen because of our scientists. And on this podcast today, I'm speaking with a prominent scientist who is actually developing sustainable aviation fuel for India. So please tune in and listen. Where is India currently at sustainable aviation fuel? What does it take to make India a world leader? And what does it take to make all our planes fly on sustainable aviation fuel? What does it take to make sustainable aviation not the future fuel but the present fuel? I hope you enjoy this conversation, and while you do that, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Welcome, Dr. Anil, on the Clampreneur Show, and thank you for having us in your laboratory. So, tell us that यहाँ हो क्या रहा है इस laboratory में?
Yeah, so I welcome you all here in our laboratory. We are working basically on making biofuels for transportation. But today our more focus is on making sustainable aviation fuel from renewable resources. So in that mostly we are focusing on different kind of feedstocks like waste cooking oil, or we call used cooking oil, or any kind of plant derived oils, or even animal derived fats and lipids can be used for this process. So right now you can see behind me is the pilot plant where we continuously do this process. And we started this at a very small scale in the laboratory with maybe processing about few grams of the feed way back in 2009-2010, and it was under a global kind of consortium which involved Pratt and Whitney and some universities from Canada, universities from India, and we developed the entire process nearly in around 2010 or 12, and we produced this fuel, and it was tested for all its properties to meet these specifications. And to meet the global specification and also to scale up the process, हम लगातार इस प्रोसेस को इम्प्रूव करते रहें. और इस प्रोसेस में बेसिकली जब यूज्ड कुकिंग ऑयल के साथ हम हाइड्रोजन को मिलाते हैं, और हाइड्रोजन जो कि एक वैल्यूएबल रिसोर्स है, जैसे रिसेंटली कहा गया कि वी हैव टू बिकम हब फॉर द ग्रीन हाइड्रोजन इन इंडिया. तो उस एंगल से हमारे पास हम काफ़ी सालों से ही वी हैव बीन यूजिंग इलेक्ट्रोलाइजर टू मेक hydrogen by splitting of water, which is a well established technology, but the technology keeps improving and we are using the latest it is called PEM based technology, or polymer electrolyte fuel cell based technology. So we can use solar panels to split the water, and by splitting water we produce hydrogen and oxygen. So that hydrogen we actually use in our process. So it is entirely a green process where and it is completely sustainable as well as renewable. So under that program, in fact, to have the good supply chain of the feedstocks, we started working on the process of collection of used cooking oil, and we have a, as you know, that India has a RUCO mission, that repurpose used cooking oil mission. So in that mission, we also got involved, and now IIP along with an NGO in Dehradun, we are continuously collecting the used cooking oil from various restaurants and hotels, and that used cooking oil is processed in our pilot plant. So this fuel we have supplied continuous. As you are aware, we did a test flight between Dehradun and Delhi for SpiceJet using this fuel. And also for Indian Air Force, we supplied this fuel, and this fuel is used continuously with 10% blending of this fuel with your normal jet fuel. So our fuel is exactly like your normal aviation turbine fuel or jet fuel, and it meets all the properties. There are specifications for this fuel called ASTM 1655 specification. So we meet all those specifications, but in addition to that, there is a special kind of approval required for aviation biofuels, which is to be done by ASTM, and we are in the last stage of getting that approval, and we are continuously supplying our fuel. We have supplied 2 times, and we have passed all the requirements for the this fuel to meet the ASTM specification. So if we get the certification from ASTM, our fuel will be available for international flights. And we work very closely with Indian Air Force, and we continuously supply this fuel. We have supplied nearly about 8,000 liters of this fuel. And the goal is to have all the platforms of Indian Air Force aircrafts to be certified to use this fuel continuously. So this is a step towards self-reliance using this fuel. And even for the commercial flights, there is a huge interest, as you know, because of the mandates. It is necessary that these kind of fuels are blended. So ours is a globally unique technology because we have competing technologies from US as well as from Europe. But the differentiation is between our technology and the global technologies is that we produce a certain component which is called aromatics, which is necessary for this fuel to become 100% allowable to be put into aircraft. Right now, the allowed limit is only up to 50%. But our target is that this neat fuel itself can be put in the aircraft without blending with your fossil derived fuel. So globally, there are very few technologies which can meet that requirement, and we have met all the specifications required to become 100% sustainable aviation fuel, which is drop-in, and we can directly put in the aircraft.
Please expand the word drop in.
So drop-in means the fuel can be directly put inside the aircraft without doing any modification in the fuel or in the aircraft. So that means it is exactly like your normal aviation turbine fuel or ATF or biokerosene. This is biokerosene, and the properties will be exactly same. So that means we can use it directly inside the aircraft. And
Like Boeing also, I think, mentioned quite recently that India is going to be a key player in sustainable aviation. So, like, are you also like closely working with organizations like Boeing?
yeah, so we are working closely with the organizations like Boeing, and we have a MOU with them, and
And also with, I think, Tata's, like,
also the Tata, almost all even Indigo, Tata, SpiceJet, all those airlines, we have a MOU where we work together as a consortium to develop this technology to have the availability of this fuel inside our country. And with that goal, MRPL or Mangalore Refinery is setting up a plant using our technology along with Engineers India Limited. So this plant is targeted to be operational by 2025, and all the engineering is being done by Engineers India Limited for this process. And we are very detailed way we are doing a survey of what kind of feedstocks can be available, how these feedstocks can be made available for the refinery to process. And from among the list of different feedstocks available, like I mentioned, used cooking oil or any kind of waste oil, they are available in small pockets across our country. But how this can be channelized and brought, and how the aggregators can become very active to supply this fuel at a reasonable price. And so in addition to taking care of this waste oil not going down the drain or going in our food chain again, rather than that, the aggregators can take care that this oil comes directly to the refinery, and the refinery processes in to make it a sustainable aviation fuel.
And how long will it say it take for all the flights, like specifically talking from the Indian context, to fly on sustainable aviation fuel?
Yeah, so that is actually a long target. So as you can see today, even meeting the 10% blending target is very difficult because of the lack of the feedstock.
But why is there a lack of feedstock? Like, we often talk about the waste available, we often talk about this oil like that's available. So, why this, lack of it?
Yeah, so oil, mostly like used cooking oil, whatever quantity we have, so that is not sufficient as such, and it is available only in small pockets. So the major feed that we think is available is the waste oil, but aggregation of this waste oil and bringing it at a particular place for use is a difficult and challenging. So in which all the players have to be brought together, and as CSIR and IIP we are playing an active role that all aggregators come together and they supply this feedstock. And also we have a real measurement of what is the quantity of feed available. So as you can see, the most used vegetable oil, only 1 or 2% will be going waste. So that amount will be available only in small pockets across the country, and bringing all that feedstock together at one place is challenging. Even we talk about tree-borne oils are available in India, but that too is available in small pockets. But another activity that we are doing is the cultivation of these kind of feedstocks. So recently we started a plantation activity where this Ethiopian mustard, which is called
Kali
carinata,
sarso.
which we are growing in certain areas like in Lucknow and Kashipur as a pilot study in about 4 hectares of land. And that oil is inedible, but it can not only add to the income of the farmers, but it will also become a assured supply of the feedstock. So overall, even though waste is available, but waste oil as such is not available in huge quantity. So having sustainable aviation technologies from other waste, like municipal waste, they can be converted into gas, and then that gas can be converted into fuel. But all those are highly cost intensive. Only this technology using vegetable oils or plant oils is economical than other technologies, because of the number of steps involved is less. The purification involved in other technologies is more cost intensive than this technology. So even though feedstock availability for this technology is less, but because overall the commercially it is more economical than other technologies. So what we are focusing on, how to have more supply of these feedstocks, how we can increase the production of these feedstocks, or even the activities like plantation of oil bearing trees across the country, which was started a long time back, and probably it will take up strongly in our country. And so it meets two targets, like if we do more plantation, we have afforestation along with the supply
Yes.
of oil. So that activity has to be very strong, and we work closely with the agriculture organizations in India, like Punjab Agricultural University or our Agriculture Council in India. And we try to see how these yields of these oils from these plants can be increased.
And how efficient is this oil in comparison to the conventional oil that we are using in the flights right now?
So overall, this we have found that the performance is marginally better than your normal fuel. Even the overall fuel efficiency, because the calorific value or overall the heating value of this oil is higher, because it has certain components called aromatics, which is less than in your conventional fossil fuel. So because of that, this has gives marginal better performance than your normal fossil fuel.
And if we compare the environmental aspects of both the fuels, how would you like
Yeah,
quantify that?
so that if you see that there is 80% more beneficial in terms of reduction of CO2 emission if we do not include renewable hydrogen in the process. And if we have renewable hydrogen, so it becomes nearly 90 to 95% more CO2 saving than your normal fossil fuel.
And can I was reading this thing that can all right now some research is being going on that can planes really fly completely on hydrogen fuel. So is that like even possible, and what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so the hydrogen as a fuel, as you see, hydrogen is a gas and it is a flammable. But airlines are working very strongly on that area, and they consider as future where hydrogen can become using fuel cell and all as a fuel for aircrafts. But that is not in a very near future. Maybe it is a long term goal. But in shorter term, in near 10 to 15 years, these kind of fuels, liquid fuels, will continue to be the fuel for supplying or for aircrafts.
And where do you think that India currently stands in terms of biofuel as an area? And can we become self reliant, or as Narendra Modi, our Honorable Prime Minister, says, can we be Atmanirbhar and not import and export?
Yeah, so that is something we need to do, because depending on imported crude oil itself is something which is for our own security as well as for economics is not good. But it is a challenging or huge task, because the amount of fuel that we are importing is nearly 80 to 90% of fuel is imported. And equivalent of that, if we consider all the waste like municipal waste and everything, we do have those kind of resources in India, but the challenge is how to convert them economically, so they are competing in terms of price with your fossil derived fuel. So that task will remain a challenge for long time. But with the developments of the technology or improvements in technology, it is possible that we will be able to meet those challenges, and we can become more self reliant on our own domestically produced biofuel rather than importing it.
And also, like you were talking about the plan that's being going to, like the first plan that's being going to be settled. So, what is the liters of the fuel that's coming out of it, and how many flights can fly on that fuel that would be coming out?
Yes, so that is a 100 tons per day plant. So you can, so it is not a huge plant, and it is we call it as a demonstration plant. And so nearly about we can produce about process about 100 tons of feed in that plant, and maybe around about 80 tons per day of overall fuel will be produced. Out of that, about 40 tons per day will be your sustainable aviation fuel, and about 40 tons per day will be your road transportation diesel fuel, and along with that some about 10 or 20 tons per day will be producing gasoline. So that is a high quality gasoline which can go for petrochemical production.
And if we just look back and just like go through like what all things are like at our background, basically, we can start from your like.
Yeah, so as you can see, this is the renewable diesel. So in our process, we produce diesel as well as gasoline and as well as sustainable aviation fuel. So this is the renewable diesel. So it can go directly into your cars in
It's
the
drop
diesel
in.
car, drop in fuel, and we have a running car which continuously runs using this fuel, and we have run nearly 3000 kilometers using this fuel.
And the emissions would be.
Emissions are obviously about 80% lower than your normal fuel, and in terms of CO2 emission and other emissions like sulfur is lower. almost nil in this fuel. So sulfur emissions is lower, even NOx emissions are lower in this
Can
case.
this replace like our existing dependency on diesel? Like when will we see, say, like all the cars running on, say, renewable
Yeah,
diesel
so like here also the challenge is same, like to have the feedstock.
feedstock
Yeah,
again?
so we have to work very hard on having those feedstocks, and the technology as such is well proven at the pilot scale. And only challenge remains is the how we can get the enough feedstock to run all the cars. But even if we meet the 50% or 20% of the requirement, this is a good step towards having a complete this kind of fuel for our road transportation. And the other, this one you can see is the bio aviation fuel or sustainable aviation fuel. And these are from different feedstocks, like we use used cooking oil or we use jatropha, and using this kind of feedstock we get nearly same kind of fuel which can go directly into the aircraft.
Basically, this fuel, like we can drive an airplane on this fuel.
Yeah, exactly. This fuel can go into the
Go into
aircraft, and
airplane.
it
Wow.
meets all the ASTM D1655 specification for the aircraft. And similarly, as you can see on the other side, we used Pongamia. Pongamia is a tree, so it is a tree-borne oil. So if we have, it is very common in south of India, especially in Karnataka. So we can process so any kind of seed which has oil in it, we can extract the oil and convert it into the aviation fuel or diesel fuel. And the other one you can see we have written as green naphtha. So green naphtha is something which can, like petrochemicals also come from fossil resources. But to have them from the bio resources, this is a very good feed for that. So this is called green naphtha. So overall, this makes this technology very promising, because all these products have more value than your normal fossil derived or other competing technology derived processes. And the last one, as you can see, is the hydroprocessed vegetable oil. So that is the mixture of all the three. So what we do is we produce the entire product mixture, and then we distill and separate into different fractions.
And this one, aviation
So
turbine
this is
fuel.
your normal turbine fuel, ATF, so normal fossil derived fuel. So as you can see, they are exactly same or in appearance, and even the smell, if you see, they are similar. So only difference is this is a bio derived, and this is better in terms of having less emissions, in terms of having lower aromatics, and that one of course has more emissions.
Do you feel that, like we was telling that, that's for example, this is from Pangamia, and then we're already talking about the Kali Sarso. So probably plants specific to the geographic, like for example, if one area has one kind of feed, so probably we can set like different plants with respect to the geography, like and the
Yeah,
kind of feedstock they're
exactly.
supporting.
That is the area in which most of the agriculture organization in India should work
And
and
every state could play
identify.
a role in that
Yeah,
way.
and like in Chhattisgarh, Jatropha has come very successfully. Even in Rajasthan, it came out quite good, but not in other parts of country. And in Bihar and all those states, Mahua, as you are aware, Mahua tree. So Mahua oil is available in those areas. But only problem is how to get them, aggregate them, and bring it to the processing plant. So, and like in South, I mentioned Pongamia is more prevalent. And yeah, so these are different depending on which part of the country we are thinking, and considering that plantations should be done to have those kind of oil bearing trees.
My last question to you is that what hope do you have with sustainable aviation fuel, like, and why are you working in this field like daily?
Yeah, so this is the future of aviation, we feel, because and having this technology gives a lot of power to our country itself, in terms of having a unique technology which is globally different from other technologies. And as you know, there is a mandate for having sustainable aviation fuel to meet the emission norms global, which are going to be implemented by 2027. So before that, we should have, like India and other countries should have these sustainable aviation fuels available. Otherwise, the taxes in terms of emission that has to be paid is huge. So we feel that there is a huge economic and commercial benefit in this technology. So we continuously keep on improving the technology, making it more economical, better, and so that the prices of overall the fuel comes down.
Thank you so much for being with us today, and
Thank you so
thank you
much.
for playing an integral and a very important role for India to lead in this space and also to decarbonize the footprint.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for being with
Thank
us
you.
today.